Welcome to the Nerd Party.
I think people are perverts. I've maintained that. That's the foundation of my career.
Welcome to House of Fincher, the podcast on the Nerd Party Network that is going to take a look at all of David Fincher's work leading up to the release of Mank. I am one of the co-hosts of this show, Detective John Mills, and with me on this journey is the inestimable Detective Brandon Matala. Brandon, how are you today?
What's in the podcast? What's in the podcast?
And of course, joining us is the captain of the precinct, Detective Tristan Riddell. How are you, Tristan?
I don't know. I'm putting you on something else.
Okay. No, not this case.
Oh.
Not this case. Not this week. We're not ready for it.
Right. Oh, right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So, of course, House of Fincher is brought to you on the Nerd Party Network. And you can find the Nerd Party Network over on Twitter at Join Nerd Party. You can search for the Nerd Party on Facebook and Instagram. We would love to hear from you. We would love to get your own feelings on the different works of David Fincher. You can go over to thenerdparty.com/contact and leave us a note over there as well. And if you're enjoying this show, please head on over to iTunes or your service of choice and give us a 5-star rating and review. We would love that. We would love any star rating and review because this is a labor of love, and we would love to know that you love us as well. So here in our journey for the House of Fincher, we're at the big work, the one that made David Fincher the household name that he remains to this day, the one that basically kicks in the door and says, now we got to go in. And that, of course, is Seven, the landmark film that was his follow-up to Alien 3, which had been received in a lukewarm fashion at best. And we have here Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman playing detectives in New York who are put on a case of what appears to be a serial killer inspired by the 7 deadly sins. So I think what we've done previously is we've talked about our encounters with Fincher and when we viewed certain things. And so I'm dying to know, because I know my own story. Brandon, how was the first way you encountered Seven? And what was that experience like?
If I remember correctly, it would have been on VHS, and I'm pretty sure I would have borrowed it from my buddy Matthew. So Matthew and I were really close friends up in La Ronge, Saskatchewan. I lived up there, and he and I had a lot of very similar tastes in movies, and we would switch movies. We'd talk about movies. We'd talk about X-Files and Star Trek and things like that. And I'm pretty sure I borrowed this from him and fell in love with it right away. So I left La Ronge in 97, January of 97, and it would have been probably a couple years before that I saw it. So when did this come out? Was this 95?
95, yes.
Yeah, so it probably would have been in 96, like probably right when it was on VHS that I saw it for the first time. So 15 years old, right? Probably a little too young to watch a movie like this, but it's right at that age for me, where I was exposed to a lot of movies like this. I hadn't heard of it. He had it on video and he lent it to me, and I fell in love with it right away. Like, I was pretty blown away with it. I mean, I think that the type of storytelling and the type of twist that happens in it, and the type of content that was in it was just kind of the right time for me to see this movie, because that's everything that I was interested in when I was about 15 or 16 years old.
So just before, Tristan, we get your story of your first encounter, Brandon, I'd be interested, before you saw it, now you say you were 15, were you a fan of the detective genre before that? Were you somebody who sought out, the crime shows, or, be they fictional or real? Was that your thing?
Okay, so I'll confess publicly for the first time that in my teenage years, I was a huge Matlock fan. So,
sorry, I wasn't expecting that.
If you gave me 100 guesses, I wouldn't have gotten Matlock.
I loved Matlock. I still do. I haven't watched it in a long time, but Matlock is great. And so I would have been watching Matlock at this time. So yes, murder mysteries were definitely something that was on my radar. But like, that was probably it. So like detective movies and like police stories. Like I didn't watch NYPD Blue or anything like that. So this probably would have been my first exposure to this type of genre of film. But I was always interested in murder mysteries and things like that.
So, Tristan, same questions to you. What was your first experience with Seven, and were you a fan of this type of genre beforehand?
My first experience with this was sadly the end scene on TV.
Wow.
I had no idea what I was watching. I had no idea what was on. Like, I think either my dad was watching it or he was flipping through the channels, and it was kind of like, oh, hey, Brad Pitt, cool. And it was the ending scene in the, like near the power lines and everything like that, and with Kevin Spacey and whatnot. And the whole thing happened, the head in the box, just like John Doe getting shot. And then boom, like we have the epilogue and the credits, and I'm like, oh, well, all right, I guess that's the that's that movie. And but it was this was before I really got into movies. This was before, and by that I mean like really into like good movies and filmmaking and behind the scenes and everything like that. Before I became a film nerd, and it wasn't until years later when I got a DVD copy from the Blockbuster for sale bin. Like I picked that up for like $4 or something, and I became obsessed with it. Like I loved it. I watched it over and over again. And you guys heard me say earlier, actually, I don't know if this was on the show or if just the three of us talking. You'll have to remind me, but it was the opening credits of Seven that made me want to become an editor. And I have been an editor for years. Like I actually went to school for editing because of this film. And I'm now in video production and have been for 16 years. It's mind-blowing. There's so many great I'm just talking about the movie now, but so when I was in high school, so like Brandon, around the same age that you were, like when I was like 14, 15, 16, something like that, and I was way too young to be watching this film, I was very much enjoying it on DVD, and honestly, knowing the ending, it was a couple years later, so I didn't remember everything. Like I didn't remember who was in the box or what was in the box. I didn't remember that he actually shot John Doe. So everything it was okay. Like the experience was maintained for me. It really wasn't that bad. And and so to answer your other question, no, I'm not a fan of police procedurals. I never have been. Like I've always hated episodic television like that. I think as close as I would get to that would be Angel, like on the WB, which in earlier episodes was very much like he was a private investigator, so it was those kind of mysteries, but it was with a sci-fi fantasy bent. That's as close as I got. I never really liked procedurals, but I do enjoy a good mystery. Like I really like when it came to film, I would watch a cop movie, if there was a mystery or a murder or anything like that. Easy, but like TV, no. And so yeah, it's just I love the dynamic. I love the investigation. I love the profiling, especially with serial killers. So with TV, no. Film, 100%.
I'll add one thing to that. At this time, I was huge into both X-Files and Millennium as well.
Oh yeah, me too.
So I guess that kind of would be like a police procedural, just with like that sci-fi element to it. So
yeah, no, that was actually the counterpoint I was going to throw out there. Is I know that Tristan is an X-Files fan as well, so yeah, I think this definitely falls into that sort of category of emphasis on atmosphere. But then also pursuing cases that are not the norm. It's not just, housewife snaps and kills bad husband sort of thing. It's, we're on the trail of something special. Now, of course, I'm the resident old man of the group, so I did see this in the movie theater. I remember seeing this with my friend Joey, who I dragged repeatedly on the show Retro Perspective here on the Nerd Party. Joey was not blown away by Seven, and I just remember when we saw it. I can tell you the exact theater I was in, and I can tell you the row I was in, mainly because Joey and I always sat at the same row and side of the row. You always had to have access to the aisle so that you could go to the bathroom easily if you had to. And Joey had the bladder of a 5-year-old. And so we were sitting there, and I remember watching the film, and it just bowled me over. And I remember going in knowing who Fincher was, because I was just starting to really pay attention to director names outside of George Lucas. And I was... It was this whole thing of, it's from the guy who directed Alien 3, so I don't know. Who knows? Whatever. And I just remember that sort of odd moment when the credits started rolling of what just happened to me. What did I just go through? And rewatching it for this discussion, number one, I can say, I was a hardcore X-Files fan, especially in the early years. I love police procedurals. I love stuff having to do with tracking down criminals and tracking down serial killers. I'm a huge Michael Mann fan, and I'd already seen Manhunter by the time I think I saw that when I was like 12 or something. And of course, 95 is the same year I believe that Heat came out, which is another crime procedural sort of thing that went on to influence The Dark Knight in terms of its tone and pace and structure. And so this was sort of like a beautiful confluence. And I remember the one thing that all of us would say was we were blown away by Seven. And the big takeaways for it were, wow, Brad Pitt's actually an excellent actor, because everybody forgets that he was battling the pretty boy thing.
Yeah, that's actually
right?
one of the reasons why he chose this movie.
Right,
Okay.
Exactly. Like
What was
this
he in
was
before this? I don't know much.
Legends of the Fall came out in 94.
The Legends of the Fall was the movie right before this one that he made, and before that he did a river runs through it, and he was also the eye candy in Thelma and Louise. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He was in the Interview with a Vampire as well. Was
correct? He was in Interview with a Vampire.
That wasn't so much a pretty boy thing, though.
I would say that it was.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. It definitely was, because Louis was supposed to be beautiful, and he was beautiful, and he was very much cast to be the beautiful one. Lestat was also supposed to be beautiful, but Tom Cruise was battling his own sort of typecasting at that point, trying to become a serious actor. But yeah, Interview with a Vampire, I think, definitely gets put in there with the Legends of the Fall thing.
Right.
But that's one of the things that's fascinating is the pairing of Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt.
Yeah,
I think works very much to Pitt's advantage. And I wonder what you guys think about that, because Pitt at this point is trying to become the serious actor that he wants to be. And you have a situation where pairing him with Freeman, I think that winds up working tremendously to Pitt's benefit in this, because Freeman comes in with that implied
pathos.
Yeah.
Well, this is hot off of Shawshank, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Shawshank came out in fall of 94.
Yeah.
So this is very much a quick follow-up to that. So Freeman's already been building a rep. He's, Lean on Me. He's been in different films, other than that. But then Shawshank, he's got a lot of cachet coming into this.
Mm-hmm.
So do you agree with that Freeman helps elevate this and sort of like gives Pitt a game to try to match?
100%. Like, the scene for me that really tells you what type of relationship these two guys are going to have throughout this film is when they're in the car and it's raining and Brad Pitt is talking like young people language and Morgan Freeman is looking at him like, what are you saying to me, right? Like, he knows what he's intending, but he's like just confused because he's never really dealt with anybody that speaks to him like this before, the terms that he's using and whatnot. And like, you guys have seen the movie, I'm trying to keep it clean for the podcast and whatnot, but that scene really shows what's going on here. You've got the classic cop, the tested and true kind of clean man who's never fired his gun. Well, or fired his gun like once in anger or whatever he said, like intending to use it. And then the new guy coming in with a completely different style, and the baton is being passed from one generation to another.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that with the character of Somerset, with the dynamic between Mills and Somerset, it always needed to be that younger cop who's not green, who's not just like, fresh out of the academy or anything like that. So I'm glad that they had him like do his beat work and then 5 years in homicide. So like he was still a smart cop. He was still a good cop. He wasn't just brand new. So I really like that they did that. But, of course, the story, it's about Somerset retiring. So you needed someone who had gravitas. And Morgan Freeman, actually, David Fincher didn't think that Morgan Freeman would say yes. And so it was kind of like, I guess we can ask him. And he said yes. And he's like, oh, crap. Now, now we have Morgan Freeman. Al Pacino was originally asked. And he turned it down, and of course regrets it now because of scheduling conflicts. And Denzel was originally asked for Mills.
Oh,
really?
Yeah. So
that would have been such an interesting flip of things, I think, because having the old guard be, Caucasian and then African American as the new guy coming in, that would have added a very interesting sort of level to it, because I think that something that works again to the film's advantage is that you can't fall back on explaining away the initial dynamic of their relationship racially in any way, right? Because the power dynamic is in Somerset's favor.
Right.
And so it winds up being something that would have been such a different sort of film to handle, because there would have been an implied facet to their relationship that we don't get in this iteration.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know that would have worked if it was like an older white guy and a younger black guy for the film. I think that it had to be this way.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting, because there are so many things that an audience is going to bring into a film,
right,
that just changing that dynamic winds up changing the way they're going to receive the work.
Yeah.
And I think it's also very good that Pitt himself was in the position of trying to prove himself as an actor, because I think that makes the audience always roots for an underdog. So I think that there's even a subconscious sort of thing of the audience is pulling for Brad Pitt to succeed and learn, because we know Brad Pitt, like, come on and prove yourself, kid, becomes a dimension we add in as an audience to help, Mills as a character.
You'll never. This movie was shopped around, like the script was shopped around a bit for a while, and Guillermo del Toro was asked to direct it, and he turned it down because he said, he's like, I'm a romantic at heart and I don't agree with this worldview. And I think at that time when they were trying to get Guillermo del Toro, Sylvester Stallone was asked to be Mills.
Oh dear.
And can you imagine Sylvester Stallone as Detective Mills, directed by Guillermo del Toro?
That's a very different film. That's David Lynch directing Return of the Jedi.
Right?
Weird.
It is.
That just doesn't work.
That's how we got the mirror universe in Star Trek.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they should actually have a list of films in the mirror universe in Star Trek, and it's all these sorts of combinations of what almost happened.
Gosh. Can you imagine, Al Pacino, it's Sylvester Stallone, directed by Guillermo del Toro?
Yeah, that's now. But the thing is that speaks to, I think, do you think that it helps this film at the time that it's released? Obviously, it doesn't help it, overall, because it doesn't need it. It endures as its own, on its own terms. But do you think that the initial audience and critical reception to it was assisted by this lowered expectation, if you will? There's no David Fincher's coming off Alien 3. Brad Pitt is not a respected dramatic actor. Do you think that those two factors help play into people being caught by surprise with this?
You know what? I don't know. I think probably the biggest thing maybe this is hindsight, or maybe this wouldn't have been that big of a thing to the audience. But New Line in '95 was not the New Line that we knew when Lord of the Rings came out.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
New Line cinema was kind of like they had a lot of direct to DVDs. They couldn't really get A-list actors and directors. It was really a lot of people who was trying to make the hop from TV, and it was and so Seven was kind of their first foray into like a successful movie. Like it was I should say a big successful movie with like with Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt, because even if Brad Pitt wasn't a quote unquote serious actor, he was still a big deal by '95.
Brandon, correct me. Didn't New Line have the Jason and Freddy films by that point?
Yeah, they
so
had some of those.
New Line would have been known as schlocky horror.
Yeah.
By that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about New Line, like, you guys have on the network here, you've got the A24 project, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I was podcasting in the 90s, I would have been like the New Line project, because at that time, New Line was making the movies that I was interested in. And New Line, the New Line stamp was a stamp of approval for me that I agreed with. Like, it's like Criterion, but it's just a different style of movie. But like, there was tons of movies around this time that I was really interested in that they were making throughout the 90s. It was really, really a big movie company for me.
Yeah, I would have been a New Line fan as well, because as you guys know, just like Brandon, I'm a big horror fan. And so it would have been, the one that was like, oh, okay, all right, fine, I'll go see a New Line movie. So, it's possible that all of those things, play in. But what I want to ask is, what is it that you think takes it from surprise hit to enduring cultural reference point? Obviously, spoilers here, we all think it's a great film.
Yeah.
But what do you think makes it become that touchstone for people? You say Seven, everybody immediately knows where you're going.
Well, how did Brandon open the podcast? Like he made a joke about what's in the box. And I feel like it's two things. I feel like it's the ending, which is, which you cannot reproduce that. It's never happened before, and it won't happen again. Like, this was a one-of-a-kind ending where the writer was just like, boom, this is what's going to happen. I got it. It was one of those holy crap ideas. And the director and cinematographer and everybody pulled it off flawlessly. And then also, I think it's the tonality of the film. Everyone talks about the tone of Seven. It's constantly raining. It's noir. It's deep. It's dark. It's when they were treating the film in the chemical bath, they left the silver in so that it would keep those dark, shadowy blacks as like real deep, like as black as possible as it could, without actually losing any information. And I feel like the look and feel of the film is very unique within the 90s, while also paying homage to those noir films of old. And I think, the look and feel mixed with the ending, I think, is what really propels it forward as something that is a touchstone.
Yeah. There's so much in this movie that makes it stand out. Like, as Tristan said, the ending. For me, one of the things that I think makes this movie stand out is the maturity with which David Fincher has directed this piece, and the pacing with which he reveals information to you. Like, I remember the first time that I saw this movie, I still remember when we get the Greed murder. Right? And when they go in there, and just the way that Brad Pitt's walking around, impatient, you can kind of see people on the ground. You don't really see anything. You're getting this news report that's going on in another room. And you're in this scene for a couple of minutes before the camera shows from above and shows you greed written in blood on the floor. And it's a very shocking scene because, at that point, we haven't seen sloth written in grease, right? So like, this is our first exposure to what's going on in this, right? So he finds the sloth in the grease afterwards. The murder's happened, but we haven't seen the sloth, so they're not putting in yet that this is like a multiple homicide yet. And I think that pacing of that scene is handled throughout the whole film in the same way, and he slowly reveals information to you, which is what makes this movie stand out above all else to me.
Brandon, it was gluttony written in Greece. Come on.
Gluttony. Sorry.
Come on.
Sorry. Yeah.
That's okay. That's okay. The 7 deadly sins, just in case anybody wants to know, the only way that I remember it is I had a Shakespeare teacher that said, Falstaff put the slag in pew slag. Pewslag. Pride, envy, wrath, sloth, lust, avarice, gluttony. And obviously it stuck with me to this day. So, the 7 deadly sins can be juggled, but I mean, that was the mnemonic device that he used.
John, aren't you Catholic? Don't you have them listed right next to the 10 Commandments above your toilet in the bathroom or something, or along with the footprints in the sand?
Contrary to popular belief, no. I don't. I keep my focus on the positive stuff. That's just me. The thing that I find interesting, and what I want to key on is, yes, Brandon, I agree with you that the pace with which Fincher he's in such command here of the tone and the pacing that it's amazing. Like it's like seeing your first Tarantino film in the 90s. This is somebody in such command of their craft that it takes you off guard. It's like seeing a Christopher Nolan movie now, where I remember when I saw Dunkirk and I walked out and I forget who I said it to, but I said, I actually don't know how to feel about this right now because this is so different from what I'm experiencing all around me.
You said it to me.
But yeah. Okay. Yeah, but the thing is, in terms of that reveal and that pacing, something that I really keyed on this time was the fact that, yes, it is rainy through the whole thing, but the sun comes out when John Doe reveals himself, which is a really weird sort of inversion of how you would expect things to happen. Like you would expect the big bad killer doing his worst thing of the whole movie to be the thing shrouded in darkness and rain. But instead, it's in the brightness of dawn, and it's just this weird juxtaposition that I think really works against what you'd expect it to be. Like, basically, this is somebody in such command of their craft that they take your inculcated expectations of how the film language is supposed to be, and they say, and I'm going to flip it because I know exactly the way your brain has been trained to experience this.
Yeah. And at such an early age, at such an early time in his career, film number 2, to be able to be this brave and to make these brave choices in making a film is just it's mind-blowing. It's absolutely mind-blowing.
As a sophomore film, think about how crazy that is. This is his sophomore film. This is his follow-up to Alien 3 is 7. This is on so many lists. This is on so many people's lists. This is on Roger Ebert's great movie list. This is on, I can never remember his name, but 1,001 movies that you need to watch before you die. That is insane to think about. It's just so great that after the horrible experience that he had with Alien 3, he for a year and a half, he didn't read a script. He's just I don't think I'm ever going to make another movie. And then this script came along. He's like, okay, I'll do it, but only if you let me do it my way. This is my vision, and this is how the movie is going to be made. And then, boom, this is what happened. It's just so when you cultivate talent and let it run, this is what happens.
But do you? And I think the thing is, I think we're right here on the discovery of why it's a New Line film, because like Brad Pitt, New Line wants to prove themselves, and so Fincher's in a position where he can come in and say, "Let me do whatever I want." He knows that he's dealing with a studio that isn't 20th Century Fox, that has calcified its processes and is like, you're going to do it our way, and we have a board of directors. New Line's desperate for an art house hit.
Yeah.
Something that's going to... And so, in a sense, that then goes into, Brandon, you mentioned the A24 project. New Line is at that position of, we got to do something that's so different that we're going to set ourselves apart from everything that happens. And I think that that's a very interesting dimension to look at.
Mm-hmm.
And what's I'm glad that you brought that up, John, because that is the case. At least it was initially, and then the ending they kept trying to change. That's the only thing that they really, really tried to change. Like there was a few producers at New Line, they were just like, it's too dark. No. Like they kept making the screenwriter rewrite the script and change the script. And actually, there's a story, I have no idea if it's true or not, but that Brad Pitt was sent a revised version of the script where Gwyneth Paltrow's head was not in the box and that she was just actually kidnapped or something like that. And then she was free at the end. That was the up-to-date script. But they accidentally sent Brad Pitt the original script with the ending that we saw. And then Brad Pitt, like, I'm doing it. Like, I'm absolutely doing it. And then they found out that they sent him the wrong script. And so they sent him the new one. And he's like, no, I am doing this if you keep the head in the box.
This movie is not this movie without that ending. Like, this movie is...
Not at all.
Yeah. Like, you can't pull that punch at all. Like, this movie is building up to be something that's completely different because throughout it's something completely different.
But how beautiful is that so many of our, indelible film memories are because of mistakes. Okay, if that story, let's accept that story is true.
Mm-hmm.
Being the nerd, all three of us, we're here on the Nerd Party. We're all nerds ourselves. We're all Star Trek fans. We all know the story of how the Reliant in Star Trek 2 was approved upside down, and it comes back, and everybody says, I guess we got to build it this way now. And everybody falls in love with the design, and it's like, this is the best thing that ever happened to Star Trek. Yeah. And it's like, if that, I want that story to be true, therefore it is.
Right.
Because I that is so beautiful and so perfect because, Brandon, like you said, this movie is not Seven. This is not that unforgettable film without that ending. If I get a happy ending with this film, my reaction is, yeah, it's okay. Yes, yeah. It's good. Like that first part was good, but the last 5 minutes kind of blew. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was they even during production, like before they filmed it, they kept saying, well, you got to do it, even though you signed on it to, like, you got to do something different. And so Fincher storyboarded a different ending where Somerset kills John Doe. And Somerset did it in order to save, Mills from going to prison and everything like that. And Mills is like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm retiring. And then, like that kind of thing. And Fincher had no intention of filming that. He just did the storyboard to get the producer's office back. And they filmed something different. I think, what was it? Like they did a version where they didn't have any of the dramatic close-ups at the end, and they inferred that, like, maybe a Somerset shot. I can't remember exactly, but the producers made them do it this way in the test screening, and it didn't really work. And so Fincher got his way and said, like, well, if we do it this way, it should work. And he's like, I already filmed it, and and so they used that footage that he already filmed. But it was the one thing that the producers did do was, first, like, they did another round of test screenings, and they're just like, this is because initially the movie ended as soon as Mills shot John Doe. Like, he shot John Doe, beat, credits. And then the producers was just like, okay, you can keep that ending, but just add an epilogue. And so they added him getting into the car and then Somerset talking with the captain. And then the producers are like, okay, well, that's not enough. And then they're like, okay, so they added the VO of Somerset quoting Ernest Hemingway. And so that was the main, they were able to keep the ending, but they made them do the epilogue. And I think that's the most interference that they got.
Here's a question for both of you. You're on Detective Mills's jury.
Mm-hmm.
And undoubtedly, let's say the prosecutor is, taking as lenient a way as they can, and they say, they say second-degree murder for Detective Mills at the end here, but his his defense says, temporary insanity. Where do you fall as a juror?
Between second degree murder and temporary insanity?
Do you let him walk because of the defense, or do you convict and give him, minimum sentence or something like that?
I think he's got to be convicted.
I think you convict him of manslaughter, but then minimum sentence of almost nothing. Like almost nothing. I think you got to say okay, well, he's a cop and he shot an unarmed suspect, but the man killed his wife and his unborn child and delivered her head in a box, and that's how he found out when he already had a gun on him. You gotta listen, justice is blind, but it's not stupid. That kind of thing. Mm-hmm. It's if I was on a jury, it'd be listen, okay, we gotta follow the rule of law. Let's convict him, but give him 10 days in the slammer, that kind of thing.
Well, a little more than 10 days, probably 2 years minus a day or whatever the thing is, but I don't know.
Even that is too much, I think, in my opinion.
But I don't know,
to
me that feels like that feels like the right thing. What you just said, Tristan, where the ending should have been he shoots him, beat, done. That's a better movie. And I think that makes 7 better than the epilogue. Right? Since you've talked about that, but this is dark, and this is what Mills did in the end is wrong. Do I blame the guy? No.
I think that plays into the whole thing where it's it is wrong, but emotionally, we don't. Intellectually, we want to convict Mills. We know that's the right thing to do, is to convict him. But emotionally, what would I do in that situation? And it's wow, I can't imagine it's not even finding your wife's killer 10 years later. It's your wife and your unborn child have just been killed. Mm-hmm. That's an emotional overload. If anything, I applaud this film for the fact that Somerset doesn't do the cop procedural thing of shooting Mills in the shoulder to make him drop his weapon. John Doe has the upper hand.
That was a version of the script.
Oh, really?
That was in one version of the script where Somerset shoots Mills in the shoulder. That's verbatim in the script.
Yeah, no, but that was a typical cop movie dodge. Mm-hmm. Was he shoots him in the shoulder, and we all know to expect that. So, and I'm sorry, I know I sort of jumped in there and everything. Tristan, you were going to say something.
Oh, I was just I was going to berate both of you for your flawed examples. So here's the thing: is that okay? Hopefully you guys have seen Picard, because that's kind of a spoiler.
Well, and as this is released, that's months ago.
It's true. Right?
7
killing that woman out of revenge. That was years later, after a manhunt, and then after she chose to go away and come back. That was in cold blood. She killed a woman in cold blood. Now, John, your scenario, yes, he had a fit of passion and killed the Tusken Raiders who were holding her, but then he proceeded to kill women and children in the entire village. That has gone beyond passion to psychosis. And
yes, you're absolutely okay. I'll table that. I'll let you go on with your point.
With John Mills, with Detective Mills, he was in a carefully orchestrated plot to put him in this situation and manipulate him on a base emotional level to kill John Doe. This man was brought to the brink of insanity and was forced by every means necessary and as a human to pull the trigger, and he caved, and he did. That is why these are all three of these situations are very, very different.
Yeah, they are very much so.
Do you think that if Detective Mills did not have his weapon, if they had sent him along without a gun, do you think he still kills John Doe? Or do you think that it's simply the quickness that with which, like if he had to choke John Doe to death, does he stop and reconsider? Do you think that the big, the flashpoint here is that he even has a weapon?
I think he still would have tried, but then we would have had the situation where Somerset would have been able to come in and stop him. I think he still would have tried. I would have gone to him and beat him till his eyes bled or poked him out of his socket so that he'd die of infection a week later. That's what I would do. Like I would maim him and so that there was hell on earth and then enjoy that he was in hell. That is what I would do to him. And so the fact that he had a gun just made it easier. So, I mean, to answer your question, I think, I think the quickness definitely helped that decision and probably made it happen. But if he still would have tried, Brandon, do you agree with me? Do you?
100%, absolutely. Yeah, he definitely would have beat the snot out of him, and Mills would have done his best to stop him at that point.
You mean Somerset?
But yeah. Sorry, Somerset. I'm sorry. I'm really bad with names. I think I've mentioned this in this podcast.
Did worry. You did. It's all right.
I'm bad with names, and I'm bad with deadly sins.
So, okay. See, that in and of itself is interesting because I almost think that could be used as a defense for Mills as well, to say that the New York Police Department never should have let him go there with a weapon, knowing how manipulative John Doe was. I'm just saying that I should have been a defense attorney. That's what I'm saying.
Pushing up the nerd glasses a little bit. It wasn't New York. We don't know it was New York.
Oh, okay. However,
I always assumed it was San Francisco. I don't know why.
They don't say where it is. They go out of their way to not tell you where it is. Like even the badges just say municipality.
Yeah, but the library he goes to is. Well, okay. I'm trying.
It's
to
in Los Angeles. Is the library that he goes to? It was filmed in Los Angeles.
Really? Okay. Which you know what? And the thing is, just to gear shift away from this very uncomfortable topic about Mills's culpability at the end. One of the most beautiful things I think about this film is that it goes to such lengths to present the two styles, the two worldviews of these detectives without ever taking a position as to right or wrong. And what always brings me back to that is Somerset when he goes to that library, right? I think it's the most beautiful scene in the entire film is when he's in that library and the guards are playing cards and he's off there and they know, okay, Bill's here. He's going to do his thing, researching and everything like that. And of course it's shown as a counterpoint to Mills reading the Cliff Notes and everything, which for younger members of the audience who have grown up in the age of the internet, before the internet, we had little books called Cliff's Notes that told us it was basically cheat codes for classic literature.
Oh, kids today have Spark Notes. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
In Canada, we had Cole's Notes.
Cole's Notes.
Yeah.
Cole's Notes. Oh, I like Cliff better, but that's just me.
There's a couple of U's in Cole.
Probably 5 too many. But that's my personal pick for most beautiful scene of the film is Somerset in the library. And I wanted to get from you guys, what do you think is the most beautiful moment? What's the moment where you really felt that emotional connection with a character?
When Mills shoots John Doe.
Okay,
yeah,
fair enough.
I want to think of something different, but I mean, it's just the acting, the connection. Like we all project ourselves into Detective Mills' shoes, like because everybody's asking themselves, what would I do? What would I do in that situation? Would I pull the trigger? Would I not? And so I think the most emotional resonance is in that moment. Howard Shore's score and the cinematography, the editing, everything was so crafted perfectly to put yourself in Mills' shoes. But I want to give a different answer just to be different. I think, I don't know, like when Fincher shifts to handheld in the chase scene, when John Doe comes to the apartment and Mills and Somerset is already there, I'm in it. Like when I first saw that scene and that first happened and he switches to handheld and everything's kind of shaky and more dynamic and more frantic, that's when I'm just like, oh my God, I'm in. This is so cool. Oh my gosh. Like, are they going to get, well, clearly they're not going to get him, but like you're so it, and the scene goes on for a long time, longer than you think it would, but you're so amped up through the entire thing. I think that's when, like, that scene is when I was incredibly invested.
Mm-hmm. I'll change my answer because my answer was kind of a joke answer, right? When I was saying that,
Oh.
I know what you're asking for beauty there, John. But for me, I think one of the most beautiful moments in the film, and it's a very necessary moment in the film, is when Somerset comes over for dinner, right?
Oh,
and we get the joke of the train going by, right? Because the movie is so dark and so serious. And they're so deep in this investigation, that moment of laughter when Somerset is trying to hold back his laughter but he can't, and Gwyneth Paltrow's character starts laughing, and Mills gets mad at her. He's like, I don't know why you're laughing. You got to live in this place. Like, just that human moment is, to me, probably the most beautiful thing in it, because it's so necessary to know that these guys are not just detectives; they're people.
I like that. That's a beautiful choice. That really is.
Gwyneth Paltrow's character is the only beauty, and I don't mean it literally, is the only beauty in the movie. And it's so, and this was of course done on purpose, but like from the scene of her, like to him kissing her goodbye when he goes to work, to the dinner scene, to the scene where she's talking about having the baby with, having the conversation with Somerset. She is the only beautiful thing in the movie, and she gets snuffed out. She's killed for her beauty, and it's just such the movie pulls no punches, because it's like Somerset is saying, oh, the world is gray, the world is drab, the world is full of horror, the world is full of evil, and I need to leave this job. And Brad Pitt, like Mills's character, is the one who's saying, no, we got to believe in people, we got to love one another, we got to we can't just be nihilists. And he's the one who gets most affected by the beauty being snuffed out in the world at the end. And it's that battle of, it's that switch of perspective where you have Brad Pitt, who loses everything, loses faith in humanity, and then Somerset kind of comes back from it almost at the end, saying he's going to be around and that he believes that the world is worth fighting for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But see, I see them as like soldiers in a war, right? Gwyneth Paltrow does represent the beauty in the world. And again, like you said, not literally, not physical beauty, but that love, that truth, that anchor that makes it all worth fighting for. And you can't believe that anchor is gone. And of course, to the person who believes in it, seeing the loss of it is going to affect them more deeply than somebody who didn't think it was there to begin with. So in a sense, the whole film becomes Somerset rediscovering that there is something worth fighting for in this world. And I think that speaks to, something I said back during the Alien 3 one, where there's a more positive spin to the worldview in a David Fincher movie, either maybe than he intends or that people give it credit for, where there is beauty in the world. There is something that makes it worth fighting for at the end of it all. That even when you have the loss, the war continues and you've got to stand in there. And so in a sense, like, it almost makes R. Lee Ermey's captain more relatable, because he's the one that says, always been like this. Because, he's the grizzled veteran. Somerset's beaten down by everything that's happened. Yeah. And the captain is the one that's like, we're fighting a war. This is just the way that it is. So it becomes even more poetic that you cast a former drill sergeant in the role who, as an aside, has I think probably the best moment in the entire film when he picks up the phone and just says, "This isn't even my desk," and just hangs it up.
Did you?
I laugh every single time.
Every time I
watch
laugh
that scene.
hysterically. It's such a great moment. Did you know that he actually auditioned for the role of John Doe? And
really,
yeah, he auditioned for John Doe, and Fincher loved him so much. He's like, I got to have you in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's fantastic, because that's something that I think is really interesting, because Kevin Spacey, who played John Doe, has always been known for playing that character who has sort of a real tamped down emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He doesn't play a passionate character a lot. He plays somebody who's almost. And Tristan, I see you disagreeing with me on this. Go ahead, please throw it at me, because his delivery style has always been one of, like, I think of The Negotiator. I think of how he plays Doe in Seven. I think of the first season of House of Cards. He's always that very sort of deadpan, I'm going to tell you how it is sort of thing. Like Glengarry Glen Ross, even. He's got a very cool demeanor about himself. And I don't see R. Lee Ermey having that same sort of way to play the role, if you will.
Well,
but I can tell you disagree with me.
Well, I mean, okay, so like, by the time when this came out, like you have like it's 95. And so Seven is like right after that. He, I mean, like if you're looking at like when he's Jack Vincennes in LA Confidential, like that, that's an even character. I mean, you're right. And same with Glengarry Glen Ross. But when you look at Swimming with Sharks, which was a movie that came out like right before, like the year before in 94, like he was a movie producer, and he was kind of like he was a jackass. Like he was gruff. He was kind of in your face and shouted all the time. And then, like you have him when he played Clarence Darrow in 91. And it's just, I've also seen some of his theater work, and he, when he was in The Iceman Cometh, like, there's a very passionate monologue. So I think with his performance, it's always like he plays the even keel person until he's not. So I'll meet you halfway on that one. Like he plays the even keel, like even with Frank Underwood. Like Frank is very much, like Southern and folksy, but then he will scream at you if he thinks you deserve it. So I think that's kind of his person, like calm until he's not.
When was the completely overrated Usual Suspects?
Oh, geez.
Okay. First and foremost, take issue with that description of it. But Usual Suspects was 92 or 93, I want to say.
It was before this?
I want to say it was, but I could be completely wrong.
Came out the same year.
Let's go.
Same year.
Same year.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Same year. And
No kidding.
Kevin Spacey actually, New Line wanted to put Kevin Spacey's name at the very beginning of the movie. And Kevin Spacey is the one who said, no, you can't do that. Like, you cannot put me at the beginning of the movie. Like, people need to not know that it's me. And so he was the reason why they have it at the, like, as soon as the credits start to roll, it says Kevin Spacey is John Doe. And the beauty of this one is that, like, everyone thought that he was being selfless, but he also was just like, well, this way I don't have to do press or interviews for the movie.
Right. But the thing is, that's sort of like Matt Damon in Interstellar.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know Matt Damon was in the film at all.
Well, no one did
until he showed up.
Well,
right.
Yeah.
But it definitely, I think that's along the same lines where it does work to the advantage, because if you know the star is in the film, you're sitting there waiting for them to show up.
Right. It's true.
And when they show up, you're just thinking of the star. You're like, oh, hey, there's the star I was waiting for. And, instead, I do think it's the correct dramatic choice, because it allows the audience not to think about that person in those contexts.
You guys will never guess. I can't remember. I think he was offered the role. I don't think he auditioned for it. I think he was offered the role and turned it down. You will never guess in a million years who turned down the role of John Doe.
John Candy.
I won't guess in a million years who turned down the role of John Doe. I like the John Candy guess. I'm going to go around and I'm going to go, who would New Line want?
Yeah.
Who would have star power?
Who would New Line want in the 90s?
I'm thinking here. Oh, my gosh. Who would New Line? Oh, wow. In the 90s. I want to say Jim Carrey just to be a jerk about it, but it's not Jim Carrey.
Oh, man, that would have been interesting.
It wouldn't.
That would have been really
very
interesting.
That would have been an interesting energy. I'd say Tommy Lee Jones, just because thinking of Jim Carrey in the 90s makes me think of Batman Forever, which is a terrible movie. And so Tommy Lee Jones was in that too.
John, you have no idea how freaking close you are.
Oh, boy.
I am shocked. I am shocked at how close you are to this, because you just referenced Batman Forever and Tommy Lee Jones and Jim Carrey.
And Jim Carrey.
Yes, but I did not reference
Val Kilmer.
Oh, it makes perfect sense. Oh, it makes perfect sense.
Oh man, I am so proud of you. I honestly,
Thank
I
you.
think that is.
Thank you very much.
You might as well have just gotten it. I mean, bravo to you. Like, you were inches away from
Thank
it.
you.
You were
Thank you.
inches.
Thank you. For once, I have proven my value to this podcast. I'm very proud of that. But I could see Kilmer playing it, especially at this point in time, because this would have been right around. This is right around the time that the excellent Tombstone had been released. He'd already been Jim Morrison in the Doors back in '91.
Tombstone came out in '93, and for Batman Forever and Heat came out in '95.
Yeah, he came out in '95, but Tombstone came out almost in '94. It was like December of '93.
Okay.
It was one of those, because Wyatt Earp came out in '94, and that movie's terrible. So Tombstone, which is terrific, came out end of '93. But he would have been doing maybe, because you would have had Batman Forever, he would have probably been doing Thunderheart around this time. Oh, well, anyway. We've talked about the little moments that help inform and make this, this film so great. And what I want to be sure to give attention to is I honestly think, given this rewatch, and I want to know, what your guys' reaction was on it. The thing that I think completely roots this film, you have wonderful moments with Somerset. You have wonderful moments with Mills. You have wonderful moments with, the captain and all of that stuff. But I honestly think the moment that gives real, serious weight to this, that it's the point of no return for the film in terms of your emotional investment, is after the sex club, when they're doing the interview. And Brad Pitt is interviewing the owner of the sex club, and Somerset is interviewing the victim, I guess, who had to strap on the thing and had the gun in his face.
Mm-hmm.
That guy's performance, both of those guys who are being interviewed, their performances, I would argue, become the pivot point, that the fulcrum on which this entire film becomes what it is.
Mm-hmm. Because that scene is like, it's such a difficult scene. Like, I remember the first time watching it, like I didn't understand what the photo was when he put it down, right? I didn't understand because they didn't say, right? Like they showed the photo and they let you do everything else, and I'm like, I don't understand what that is, right? Like, because again, I'm 16 years old when I'm seeing this movie. I'm not exposed to a lot of things, right? So I don't understand what all this stuff is. So it actually took me a couple of viewings before I realized what that was, right? So, and when I did, I'm just like, oh my goodness, because like, for it, just the thought process of being forced to do that to somebody, like that guy is a great actor, and I see him all the time, and he's usually playing somebody who's flipping out and losing his mind, like he's in Alien Resurrection, right? Yep. This guy,
Leland Orser.
Is that his name, Leland Orser? Yeah, and he's in.
It's fantastic.
He's always playing some kind of greasy, scuzzy guy. He's in Carpenter Street on Enterprise and whatnot. But like that guy he's perfect for the role in that, because it is a crazy scene, because the guy is just losing his mind for what he was made to do.
I've seen Seven probably a dozen times, and I've seen that scene exactly once.
Mhm.
And it's the same as Sloth. I've seen those two scenes exactly once. I'll never watch them again.
So you skip those?
I do every time.
Oh wow!
Every time. I can't handle those scenes. I cannot handle those
man.
scees.
I remember when Sloth scared the crap out of me the first time I saw that movie.
Yes.
When he coughs, like
I
holy
can't.
smokes, that scared the pants off.
And and the
Okay.
fact that that's an actual actor and not animatronic is just insane.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that you guys are Mills and I'm Somerset, because I watch those scenes and I'm like, yep, that's the way the world is. But getting back to that guy when he's delivering that performance, what's amazing to me is that is a scene that ages very, very well, because as you get older, of course, you get different life experiences, you get different perspectives. And when I was younger, I really, really, the first time I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, somebody puts a gun in your mouth. You got no. But I almost, number one, I'm never going to find myself in that situation. I promise you. But, taking aside all of that sort of thing, there's almost a part of me that views that scene now saying to that guy, the noble thing is to take the bullet.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes.
You've got to take the bullet. And it's one of those things where I almost wonder if John Doe's entire masterwork goes sideways if that guy simply decides to do the right, quote unquote, right thing in that situation and say, you know what? No, kill me. I can't do this. This is not possible. Like, I can't imagine, regardless of the circumstances, doing something violence on that level to another person.
Right.
I would like to say that you can't force me to do that.
Yeah.
But
that's another thing where it's like when you're in that situation, you'll never know. Like,
sure.
Like we'll come back to it. I'll point out something here because I want to make sure we don't forget. I think his plan unravels if something else doesn't happen even earlier. But I'll leave that in.
And
no,
I want to
no,
go
no,
back.
tell
No,
me.
I want to go back before we go back and go forward, because I have to mention that the actor that Brandon that you were praising, Leland Orser, he practiced hyperventilating for this movie so that he could hyperventilate without passing out, and so that he could do it over and over and over again. And he also stayed up for 2 days straight before he filmed it.
Okay. That reminds me of the possibly apocryphal story from Marathon Man, which I love to relate all the time, where Dustin Hoffman stayed up for 24 hours and Laurence Olivier looked at him and said, my dear boy, you should try acting. It's so much easier.
That's immediately what I thought of too.
Yeah. I mean, hats off to the guy. You're taking your craft very seriously at that point. But, wow. He stayed up for 2 days?
2 days, yeah. I mean, you're in a... it's just he's filming for like 1 day, so, do it.
The fact that he could remember his lines and wasn't hallucinating, because I have stayed up for 48 hours before, and I can tell you that it was the most unpleasant experience in the world. It was awful. So, wow. Hats off to him.
So, Brandon, what point do you think his plans would have unraveled?
Okay, so I talk about this a lot when I talk about my podcast. I'm like, they write what they write. The writers write what they write. And like this movie's a masterpiece. I believe this movie is an absolute masterpiece of cinema, right? But they've written certain things. And John has a very good point that, yes, I believe that John Doe's plan falls apart if the guy chooses to not do this. I believe also that, like, let's pretend this was a real world scenario. I also believe that John Doe probably had a plan B for that situation, right?
Okay.
I don't know what that would have been.
Sure.
But, this whole thing, I think, falls apart if we don't get Mills. If we got somebody else, because Mills, while he does have this positive outlook on everything, he's got anger issues. He's got frustration and patience issues, and we see that multiple times in this where, with the tone that he has, like if he's not the detective on this case with Somerset, this whole thing falls apart as well. Because when John Doe comes in as the photographer and takes the picture, and John Mills is yelling at him, getting angry. He gives him his name, right? And like swears at him and whatnot. Like if he doesn't have that reaction, I don't think that we have the master plan, because the master plan in this situation, the last sin is wrath.
You could make the argument, number one, it's David Mills, but John Mills probably would have reacted in the same way. So
Did
that's
I say
fine.
John Mills?
You did, and the thing is, again, I give you a point for honesty on that one. Let's be true. But I would say that you could argue, you could reverse engineer an argument there, saying that was his test to see which detective it was going to, blah 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 blah. You could do any of a number of things. Like we as fans, again. I'll reference Star Trek, as we have previously.
Okay, but
that's what we do as fans.
I got to interrupt there. Like Somerset doesn't have a wife.
Yeah,
right?
like what if Mills
True.
didn't have a wife? Like he was a transfer, like what does he do?
You know what? I would say that John Doe's master plan would have been to hook him up through speed dating with a woman he would have fallen in love with, that he would have then taken her away from him. It's a perfect. There you go. It's ironclad right there.
It's true though, Brendan.
Yes.
Like that is like what
I agree.
What would have happened if Mills was in the picture? Like what would have John Doe done? That's yeah.
But that is something I think that speaks to the beauty of how well the film is constructed.
Yeah.
Is that a really excellent film disarms you and makes you stop asking those questions.
Oh yeah, 100%.
You're going along for the ride at that point. There are a million films that fall apart because of those exact reasons. Because you say, why would a Star Destroyer be underwater? And, everything starts to unspool at that point.
What would happen if Indiana Jones wasn't in Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Right. There you what if somebody else was looking for the Ark? Who knows? But it is definitely something where it, from a real world logic perspective, it falls apart. But from a movie logic perspective, it works because you want it to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and
I'm not asking that question the first time I see this movie.
Exactly.
I'm asking that question the 20th time I've seen this
Yeah,
movie, right?
exactly.
Yes.
So, and I mean, like, again, that's not any detraction from the film, because I believe this film is an absolute masterpiece in cinema.
Now, see, the thing is, I love this film, and I struggled with it this time in terms of, is it a 5-star masterpiece or is it a 4.5-star excellent film? And I went back and forth, and the thing that for me disqualifies it from that sort of like perfect masterpiece sort of thing is there's almost a sense when they get to the station the morning that John Doe reveals himself. It's just the way that they get out of the car, and Somerset says, "Oh, by the way, I'm going to stay on until the case is done." Like it's almost as if I wish they hadn't had that line in it to begin with, because of the fact that it draws my attention to, through the whole movie, Somerset saying, "Screw it. No, I'm not staying. I'm done. I'm out at the end of this week." And then they get out of the car and it's dawn, and Somerset says, I changed my mind. I'm going to stay till the end. And for some reason, I fixated on it at this point. And it made me go back through and hit some other story logic points that sort of broke it down. And it felt like at that point, the film goes on fast forward, because through the entire point up to that line, everything's very measured, very steady, very, mood, peace, focused sort of story. And then it gets to that, and it occurs almost at the timestamp where they say, you know what, we've got to wrap this up. We got to get to the end of this. And maybe that's just me being nitpicky about it in that moment, but, that's just where I ended up.
Okay, so I think you're being nitpicky on that one. And the reason why is because at the beginning, when he's saying he tries to give the case away, it's because at that point we've had the two murders, and they're realizing that this is a serial killer, and they don't know how quickly this is going to proceed. Like, like other things that upon 20 viewings of this movie that fall apart is that this thing takes place in a week, right? I think that that's too quick for what's going on here. But with the movie going on and how we're watching the film, at the beginning of the week, realizing this is the second in a serial killing, he's like, I can't be involved in a serial killer right now. However, when he says that, he knows that there's only 2 left, because now they know, like, they've got 5 dead bodies already, and there's only 7 deadly sins. So he's saying that, and he says that, he's like, either this is going to pan out and we'll never catch the guy, or we'll catch the guy and stop this. And with 2 murders left, like, the end of this is coming pretty quick. So to me, I don't have trouble with that line myself.
But that then makes me pivot and say, I guess maybe just to be a stubborn ass, to say, you bring up the point, if Mills doesn't have his anger issues, well, if Somerset doesn't get assigned this case with his meticulous attention to detail, right? He doesn't move the refrigerator, or the other, whoever else gets assigned to it doesn't do the extra legwork necessary to know what's happening to plug into what's going on. It's necessary for both Somerset and Mills to be assigned to this case for the story to work.
I don't necessarily think so, because they did the autopsy on Gluttony and found the pieces in him. Somebody would have gone back, and they may not have found it, but once they got to the next one and the next one, then they probably would have gone back to that one, I think, because it's kind of fitting the pattern, and they would have realized a couple of dead bodies later that this is a 7 deadly sins thing, and they're like, wait a minute, one of the deadly sins is gluttony, and we just had a fat guy killed.
Yeah.
So they would have gone back to look at that at some point. It had Somerset not looked at it at that time, somebody would have gone back and looked at it and found that out at some point, I believe.
I think that's solid reasoning.
Yeah. I mean, I can go along
now,
with that.
John,
I'm you're going to be changing your review back to 5 by the time this podcast is
but
done.
I think since we're getting to ratings, and we've been going for a while on this one, I'll jump in with mine. John, I also we're in a good spot with a movie if we're arguing, should I give it 4.5 stars? Should I give it 5 stars? I don't know. If you're going from 4.5 to 5, you have to nitpick. You have to have those instances where it's not perfect. Like, a 5-star film is a big deal. Like, you don't just give those out. Like we're talking like Godfather Part 2, Citizen Kane, Spice World. These are all 5-star films,
Absolutely, they are.
And so with this,
and Godfather 3.
Okay. See, I was willing to let the Spice World thing go for the joke, but okay. All right. No. I'll walk away. I'll walk away. Go on, Tristan.
You had to come in on my joke.
Go on.
But yes, it's but I'm giving it 4.5, mainly just because I believe the Gwyneth Paltrow scenes drag. I think the pacing is weird. I think where they included them and how long we were there, it felt odd, because I feel like, John, your issue with the ending being a little too rappy-uppy and too fast-paced, if we condensed those scenes with Gwyneth Paltrow a little bit more, it would have felt a little bit more even as we get it. We would have had more build to the ending, because it kind of felt like the Empire cave scene, where it just kind of kills the momentum.
Okay. Fair. Definitely fair.
But then I ask the question, does it hit as hard at the end, with it being his wife's head in the box, if we don't get those moments with her?
Oh, no, we have those moments. I think we absolutely have to have those moments. I think they could have been placed in different ways and maybe truncated a little bit.
Or you know what? Almost, I think maybe what might be a middle ground is have one more scene with her, but like have each scene be a little bit briefer. Maybe that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like it's that the time of these scenes you could have excised a little bit here and there, and then given her another moment later, so that she doesn't disappear.
Absolutely.
Before that.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
I'm fine with more Gwyneth Paltrow spread out.
Yeah, because she does disappear. And, you can say, okay, well, that makes sense. And, you've got all that sort of thing. But if you do take that time and you give it, you take a minute here and a minute there, and they give her a 2-minute scene later, closer to the end, it gives more of a shock impact at the end because you've just seen her. It's even weirder that she's gone.
Yeah, upon rewatch, when you rewatch it and John Doe comes into the station, and then, Brad Pitt is talking to Somerset and they're interrogating him. They're talking with the lawyer and they're shaving their chest and getting ready to go. The entire time I'm just like, oh God, she's gone. She's gone, man. You have no idea. You have no idea. It's just, you're so wrapped up in it. It's crazy.
But I do want to say one very interesting thing that I think, and it's a wonderful bit of stage business, I think, is to give John Doe the tea so that he can to show the fact of how dispassionate he is about everything, to have him have the bandages on his fingers, dipping the tea and looking at the mirror, that sense of control that he has even in that moment, I think that scene gives so much more menace to him because he doesn't care. Mm-hmm. He knows, to borrow the line from later in the movie, he has the upper hand.
Mm-hmm. And the only time that he got amped up was when he was talking about humanity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and I still love when Brad Pitt turns around and looks at him, and Mills says, you're a TV movie of the week. That's one of my favorite, not an insults of all time.
But then he follows it up with, you're a T-shirt. What the hell does that mean? What? I get TV movie of the week.
You know what? The best thing I can think of is in the 90s is Charles Manson enjoyed this weird pop culture resurgence where it would have a picture of him after he was arrested, and it would say, "Charlie, don't rave." So I got to imagine that on some level that was in Walker's brain when he was writing that.
Yeah. That's what I got too.
I'll get that. I'll give that.
Because there was those Manson shirts with that crazed look that he had.
Yeah,
right? And it was just his face. So I think I saw a bunch of them. They were just his face, right? So.
Also, speaking of of Mills pointing, this is peak Brad Pitt, using his full hand to point.
Yes,
he does that shake thing where it's just kind of he's going over there and going over. I know this is bad podcasting, but he's just
Oh no. What you're describing right now, anybody that's seen a Brad Pitt movie knows exactly what you're talking about. It's the eating a donut pointing with his middle finger thing in Moneyball.
Yeah.
And that sort of thing. Brad Pitt has this really weird space where he's working out acting with his hands. Mm-hmm. And it always reminds me of the comedian Jim Norton. Whenever he was on the Opie and Anthony show, they would have an actor on, and he would always say, "What should I do with my hands?" during a scene. And it was now that's burned in my brain because I watch Pitt and I'm like, how handsy is Brad Pitt going to be in this film?
That's funny. Right on.
Yeah.
Well, I said already 5 stars for this. I love this movie. And one of the main reasons we kind of touched on earlier, and I'll show you guys because it's one of my prized possessions here. And one of the main reasons that this movie, I think, works so well is one of the underrated people in cinema working on it would be Howard Shore. Mm-hmm. And, his score to this movie is just beautiful. So I've got the 7 score by Howard Shore autographed.
Nice.
Holding it up to the camera.
That is that is a true collectible. Brandon, I would say, when we drop this, let's put a picture of that. Take a picture of that cover.
Sure,
and, we can use that right there for the show art. But, we've had, obviously, 7 is a seminal work. It's an important work. It's a touchstone. And we've said a lot about it. Obviously, we could say even more about it. But we would love to hear from you. Like I said, thenerdparty.com/contact. You can reach out to us there at Joy Nerd Party on Twitter and the Nerd Party on Facebook and Instagram. But Brandon, if people want to talk to you about 7, where can they find you online?
Best place to find me is Twitter at Brandon Mutala. That's Mutala. If you want to hear some more opinions of mine on movies and TV, I've got a podcast called Good Evening, an Alfred Hitchcock podcast, which is all about Alfred Hitchcock's work. That's over on the Fandom Podcast Network as well as in its own independent feed. I've got a show called Franchise Fatigue, no R, with my friend Zach Moore, and over there we just cover movies, sequels, and remakes, and I'm still eagerly awaiting David Fincher's 8. We haven't got that yet. So that's a whole heck of a lot of fun with my friend Zach Moore. And then over on Trek FM, I have a show called The Line, which is all about Star Trek Picard, which I've mentioned a couple times in this episode.
Subliminal plug.
Tristan, where can people find you?
You can find me all over the internet under the username The Insane Robin on a lot of different social networking sites. If you want to listen to some of my previous podcasting work, go to A Nerd Nuptial, which is a show that I hosted with my wife where we talk about movies and TV. And if you want to hear about my Star Trek opinions, you can go to Punch It, Writing in Star Trek, a show that I hosted with Charlene Schmidt. And you can find those two shows at thenerdparty.com. John, what about you?
Well, you can find me online as Kesseljunkie, Kesseljunkie. You can find me on Instagram, and because I go through waves of self-loathing occasionally on Twitter. And you can, of course, find me here on the Nerd Party co-hosting a show about Star Wars called Aggressive Negotiations with Matthew Rushing, which it actually, to be honest, it's a little different than the Star Wars podcasts you're used to. We don't care about what came out of Toy Fair or what the latest rumors are. We care about the deep dive topics on Star Wars. So go ahead and check out Aggressive Negotiations. So, gentlemen, I think sadly, to close out on this note, John Doe has the upper hand.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.
So, Tristan, you said something really interesting there about one of the alternate versions of the script where Somerset actually shoots John Doe instead of Mills and says, Mills is like, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm retired." I think that script would totally work if they had Somerset played by Schwarzenegger.
Like I can hear a doughy-eyed Mills say, "What are you doing?" "I'm retired."
And now I want Stallone as Mills.
Oh my gosh. Oh geez. Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger, and this is the picture that they're in.
That's it. Now for Franchise Fatigue, this is our remake.
I love it.
What are you doing? What are you doing? What's in the bag? What's in the bag?
7 deadly.
What's in
The Adrian.
What's in the bags?
Awesome.